Nebraska.
Thank you, Madam President. 18 days ago, terror shook the Middle East. 18 days ago, Hamas tore children from their parents, tore mothers, fathers, brothers, and sisters from their families. 18 days ago, terrorism swept across Israel, destroying everything in its path. We all know this. We've heard about these attacks repeatedly with every news cycle. Even as we continue reading articles, hearing analysis, and seeing new information, let us not forget the reality of these terror attacks, the seriousness of such a massive loss of human life. Hamas killed over 1,400 people, over 1,400 innocent civilians in its attacks this month. Death touched thousands of friends and family members, and its after effects are still rippling across Israel and across the world. Let us resist our modern impulse to leave this tragedy behind in favor of the next headline, the next crisis. Let us allow the abuse, the torture, and the murder of Israelis and Americans alike to strike a fresh sense of grief and anger in our hearts every time that we hear about them. That grief and anger must drive us to respond to the horror of terrorism. Israel is responding, yes. But the response to terrorism should not be bound by Israel's national borders, because terrorism itself is not bound by national borders. Hamas killed American citizens in its attack on innocent people across Israel. Terrorists are still holding American citizens hostage in Gaza. Hamas has American blood on its hands. One American, Hayam Katzman, hid in a closet with his neighbor as Hamas militants rained gunfire on an Israeli village. A neighbor told CNN that Katzman covered him with his body and saved his life by absorbing the bullets. American Deborah Matias and her husband sacrificed themselves for their 16-year-old son, acting as human shields against Hamas's fire. Two American brothers, Yigal and Amit Wokes, died together, both trying to save those around them. Amit, who volunteered as head of the village's self-defense unit, ran outside to help his neighbors at the beginning of the attack. In the process, he was killed. Yigal was killed as he searched for a weapon to defend himself and his family. These are real people, real Americans, whose lives were extinguished far too early by the terror in Israel. It's critical that we see the return of every American stranded in Israel or held hostage in Gaza. Every American must be accounted for and safely brought home. Following the cold-blooded slaughter of both Americans and Israelis, the United States must stand firmly with Israel. We must send a clear message to Hamas, to Hezbollah, and their state sponsor, Iran. We will not equivocate in our support for Israel. We will stand with them and provide the assistance that they need as they make difficult decisions to defend their sovereign nation. Congress and the administration must work together to gather all of our diplomatic and economic strength against Iran. We must work together to aid Israel, whether through economic support, lethal aid, or increased intelligence sharing. We know Israel will need more defensive capabilities, including Tamir interceptors for its Iron Dome air defense system, the backbone of its missile defense architecture. I support the Department of Defense's current plans to send our 2 Iron Dome batteries to Israel to bolster their security. My colleagues and I introduced a bill to reallocate aid funding to Israel's Iron Dome that could have ended up in Hamas's pocket. This legislation would be an important first step in defending Israel against future attacks. We know Israel will need more offensive capabilities, including precision-guided munitions, to hit specific ground targets. We know Israel will need our intelligence on the Middle East so it can eliminate the Hamas threat completely. And we know standing with Israel against terror will buttress and fortify our own national defense and our own national security. Our support for Israel will help it triumph over terrorism, and our support for Israel will help us show strength and deter our adversaries. By protecting Israeli interests, we will promote American interests as well. Thank you, Madam President. I yield the floor.